Hertzler.
Here.
Commissioner Eichelberger.
Right.
Deputy Controller DeVosa.
Here.
Thank you, Jim. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, can we have a motion for approval of salary board action?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have approval of the meeting minutes of August 28th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the minutes? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Is there any other business to be brought in front of the salary board? Is there a motion for adjournment? We are adjourned. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin our Board of Commissioners meeting and our Pledge of Allegiance, I ask that we stand and have a moment of silence, meditation, and observance of Patriot Day. Those effective on September 11, 2000. Thank you. And rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
and
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Board of Commissioners meeting is called to order. Jen, have a roll call, please.
Commissioner DeVosa.
Present.
Commissioner Hertzler.
Here.
Commissioner Eichelberger.
Thank you, Jen. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, next we have a press release and proclamation in recognition of September 2017 as National Preparedness Month. Michelle, would you like to come forward and receive the proclamation?
Good to see you.
Yes, this is in recognition of National Preparedness Month, whereas National Preparedness Month is an opportunity to raise awareness about the importance of emergency preparedness and to encourage all Americans to better prepare their homes and communities for emergencies. And whereas a multitude of potential emergencies and disasters such as flooding, winter weather, fires, electrical outages, or acts of terrorism may result in extensive damage to roads, streets, bridges, private homes, and businesses, and may cause other adverse impacts upon the general population of Cumberland County. And whereas the Commissioners of Cumberland County and the Department of Public Safety, along with other federal, state, county, and local emergency management officials, participate and support National Preparedness Month in order to raise awareness and promote the need for preparedness at work and home. And whereas, in recognition of the need to adequately prepare, call upon the people of Cumberland County to recognize the importance of preparing for potential emergencies and observe this month by participating in preparedness events, activities, and programs at home and in the workplace. Now, therefore, the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim September 2017 as Preparedness Month in Cumberland County, PA, presented this 11th day of September 2017. Michelle, here we go. We appreciate all that you folks do. And we'll get a picture here. Michelle, you have anything you want to say?
Yes, I just, our department, and we encourage all of our county employees and our residents to please live by these words and be prepared. We ask you to always be prepared for at least 72 hours. It's not because on a day-to-day basis it takes us 72 hours to get to you, but when we have these kind of critical infrastructures that are impacted, it may not be you that's the only one impacted. We may be dealing with people that are needing our assistance from one end of the county to the other. We're going to have to do what we call triage. And triage means we have to see where the most impact is and where that help needs to be at for the priority. It takes up to 72 hours for our federal assets to be able to come in and fully assist us and augment what we have already in store. So, and also remember, when you're impacted, also the emergency services that are coming to help you, their families are impacted as well. So we have to make sure that we take care of ourselves so that those that are coming to help us know that they're helping us as best they can by being ready to accept their help when they do arrive. So it's not just about me needing help, it's about taking care of their loved ones as well, so they are able to come help us. All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
We see your message playing out in Florida and Texas. You may have escaped it this time, but you never know. You never know. And so it's important to be prepared.
We've been monitoring since Harvey. We don't only get the hurricane that comes directly over south central PA, but we do a lot of times get the outer bands that come. We see flooding with hurricanes historically that affect our state. Our staff has been monitoring the conditions all weekend just in case, and hurricane season's just in its midpoint. We still have a few months to go before we're out of its path.
Hopefully we're just going to get rain.
I hope so. Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, next we have Cumberland Area Economic Development Corp. funding request. The first one is to military base preservation funding. The second one to workforce development program funding. So, Jonathan.
If we would just squeeze in, we have a brief
Oh,
gift to give you, and then
A
we'll
gift?
have the other subject.
Is that a portrait of Jim?
That's large one.
Oh, that's even better.
Yes.
We're making.
So thank you for allowing me to butt in here. My name is Ashley Fitz, and I'm the promotions manager from the Cumberland Area Economic Development Corporation. I'm here today to present the Springs County maps. This is our official Cumberland Valley map, the second rendition of it. The GIS department helped us complete this project last year, and we really would not have been able to do that without their support. As a thank you, we wanted to bring you some framed copies so that you could have them here in your offices, and hopefully in the future we'll continue to work together on this very valuable project.
It's very good. Yeah, we need to find a
Yeah.
conspicuous location for that.
Find a place.
Yeah, I don't know, in the hallways, wherever.
All right, well, thank you.
Enjoy. Where would you like us to put them over there against the wall?
Yeah, that's fine for now.
That's the package up so that you don't get things.
Yeah, that's good. Take care of it. That's very nice, thank you.
Got that, some Fred standing out here. Fred Weatherman's gonna join us for the first words.
Well, we can start with the base presentation.
Sure. Good afternoon, Commissioners. As you recall, a few weeks ago, I was in to present Kate's request to the county this year for funding. This year, we had increased our request for funding for the additional monies for workforce development. On the military base preservation funding, as you recall, we did go through a strategic positioning plan last year, which is really now our blueprint for how to move forward on a lot of initiatives moving forward, focused on workforce development, focused on infrastructure needs throughout the re-installations on the outside of the fences. And then also with community engagement and involvement, making sure that there's clear lines of communication between what's happening within the gate and what's happening out in the community. And so part of that presentation that I gave kind of really outlined, what some of the priorities were and will be for us as we move forward into 2018. There still are conversations ongoing about a future BRAC, but we think that our group and our funding request is more focused on thinking long-term of how do we continue to retain and look to grow and expand the military presence here in Cumberland County and throughout the region, regardless of a BRAC or no BRAC. So that's pretty much the request that's on the table for the military piece of it, so I can answer any questions that you may have in regards to that. And then on the workforce, I'll let Laura speak to that here momentarily.
John, on the military aspect of this, something you mentioned last week, just for clarification's sake, could you clue us in as to what the disposition is of the state funding that was to be provided for this initiative?
Sure. So state funding with the fiscal year 2017-2018 is down about 30%. In 2016-17 budget, the funding level was about $798,000. This year is proposed at $500 statewide, correct. This year it's at $550,000. So it is a significant decrease year over year. The way that the state does allocation or appropriation of funds, however you want to say it, they keep a certain amount for the staff, which is housed within DCED, which is pretty much 2 employees. But they've made a concerted effort to get the majority of the funds out to the local defense groups to actually do the work. And so, unlike other levels of state government, they're not that top heavy. They have 2 folks running. Outside of that, funds get allocated to the local defense group. How those funds get allocated is based on needs and based on number of bases or size of territory. So for us, we cover 3 of the 10 installations. And so we've always done kind of a back of the napkin analysis to say, well, whatever funds are allocated down to local defense groups, typically we're getting about 30% of that since we make up about 30% of all the bases statewide. Out of all the local defense group, I'm proud to say that I think that we're probably one of the most proactive. I mean, we've done our own study already. The state is now just getting around to doing a statewide study, but we're definitely ahead of the curve as it relates to the work that's being done.
The question I have on that is, does that count for anything for us in terms of qualifying for the state funding, or is it just is it only that formula you just mentioned?
No, it does count for us. The state does recognize and realize that we're a huge advocate for them. I mean, partially, to be honest, we are here locally. The other bases, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Northeast, so they do look to us to be a leader within the military community from that front. And a lot of times we give them guidance on what's happening here and then also what's happening in DC as well. And so they definitely do appreciate that. Last year is a good example. They had about $20,000 of extra funds sitting around, and so they asked us if we had a need for it, and we did, because we put that towards the Exit 48-49 study. So they do appreciate the work that we have done in the past, and they clearly understand where we're headed in the future. And so as we move into this fiscal year, we will be meeting with a lot of lawmakers to help them understand the impact that the decreased funding will have to us, but then we'll also have statewide compared to what other states are doing.
Jonathan, if I recall correctly, the initial $50,000 that the county contributed last year was tied to, was it a study or a consultant that produced this report?
Correct.
What is this next $50,000 or what you're asking for? Refresh my memory as to how you anticipate yourself.
Correct. And so there's several various studies that are happening. For instance, in Hampton Township, they're currently doing a joint land use study. There's some local match requirements, and so we would like to be committed to being able to support them in those efforts in Hampton Township to be able to complete that study as well. So some of it will be used, is being proposed to be used to help support that study. A lot of it also goes towards a lot of the community kind of portion of the priority that we have, and that's making sure that there's clear lines of communication between what's happening on the base and what's happening in the community, and that takes resources and dollars to be able to do so. To give you a great example, Hampton Township imposed a stormwater fee several years ago throughout the township. They have 2 delinquent payers. One is the state, and the other one is the Navy. And so next week, I'll be down in DC along with Al Beanstalk to discuss with the Navy how we can resolve those issues. And again, all these things cost money and time and effort. And so a lot of it for this year is just taking a look at our list of priorities, which were in the PowerPoint presentation we had, and continuing to support the installations from the outside with efforts that may have, come up on an ongoing basis. So to answer your question, we're only looking at one additional study this year. I think we're kind of studied out, and now we're more into the implementation of those studies, and that takes the resources to be able to do so, which in the past we've primarily relied on majority state dollars, with a smaller fraction of that being county dollars. Just to give you a understanding what that means budgetarily, I think we budget close to about $250,000 for local defense groups efforts on the CADIX financials. We break that out on the revenue, we also break it out on the expense side as well. But we're running about a $250,000 budget annually, and that's not including any salaries or anything like that. Those are pure hard costs and expenses. And the county's piece would be $50,000 of that.
Because of the Cumberland facility, do we have any, are we getting any financial support from York County?
No, we have not requested any financial support from York County or the commissioners down there. Several years ago, we went down there and we briefed them pretty early on as far as the group and the effort. They have delegated the York Economic Alliance, which is our peer group. They're the Chamber and the Economic Development Group down there. They are part of the committee. They do come to a lot of the meetings, but we haven't made any financial requests to them. Partially, when you look at DLA, even though it is physically in York County, by far the majority of their workforce is Cumberland and Dauphin.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions?
You said the 250,000 does not include KD salaries.
Correct. No, those are just expenses.
That I would assume there's an accounting of that shows up in the financials that come to the board of directors. What we do is, because we have different funding streams that are sometimes restricted, even economic development and tourism, we all complete timesheets that allocate where those times are being spent. But for the local defense group, CADIX never charged our time towards the local defense group's efforts in a monetary way. It's just just an accountability of how our time is being spent. The only question I have on that is that when in past-based closing initiatives, there's been something of a monitoring of how much a community and its organizations are devoted resource-wise to the effort, and that's used as a measure of seriousness.
Correct.
So I'm curious if we wouldn't want to at least keep some type of accounting of, even though you're using, I assume, Dollar Tree reserves.
Sure.
It's some of that is public money, some of it's money you've undertaken through public mission.
Sure.
So just in the interest of having a complete picture of what exactly all of the community organizations, yours as the tip of the spear, in working this initiative, would we be able to produce something like that if we were asked by, say, a congressional committee or a BRAC committee?
Correct.
So,
Yeah. So we'd be able to have the hard costs, and again, we track our time. So we could easily go back and calculate and say this is how much of our staff time, was put towards this effort, and then we would take whatever that person's salary is, and then come up with a number.
Okay.
So we do track it if we would ever need that. And to your point, Gary, from time to time that does come up as far as how much money do communities invest in base preservation. And so we do keep a close eye on how much revenue we're getting in, how much we're spending, and on what.
We saw a lot of it with the last initiative, however many years ago that was, where the took a great deal of interest in what was the real commitment of the community
Sure.
through official and unofficial channels to help preserve their facilities. So I would imagine we can front into that again.
Jonathan, in your letter to us dated July 5th, you mentioned potential for 2021. Any wavering on that date?
No, it keeps going back and forth. I mean, I know, we do know the administration and the Senate seem to be in favor. I think the real obstacle's in the House. And I think it's largely because, most representatives don't want to vote in favor of a BRAC, and it may potentially close in their own district, where at least senators have a whole state, they can kind of cover a little bit more behind. And so that's where it seems to keep getting bottlenecked. But I think at some point it's going to come to a head, because the capacity just continues to grow, and the infrastructure continues to get older and deteriorates, and it's only a matter of time before the political pressure, I think, would become too much, and they would just have to move forward with the BRAC. But when that happens, and who knows, for us the BRAC is not the biggest concern, at least with the BRAC there's rules, but there's things that DOD can do without BRAC or congressional approval that could be more hurtful to any base versus what could happen in a BRAC.
Any other questions? Anybody? Board members who want to take action on this piece of the request?
Yeah, what's our timing typically then? Is this, what time of year do we do this last year?
Usually about this time. We usually, historically, have made a request in the summer months, and any funding that was granted usually comes in the fall.
I'll make a motion that the allocation be released.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? And this, just to be clear, is for the military base piece of it. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, next, the workforce development program.
I was hoping Fred Whalen would be able to join us here today to answer some further questions. And I also apologize, I wasn't here at the last meeting. I was on vacation, so we had to hold it. As you know, our strategic plan is embedded within the county's comprehensive plan, and that entails business retention. Our first step was really to collect data, and then secondly, to build a business retention program. And so the first part, we did the data. And so we've been able to look at advanced nursing or in healthcare, heavy equipment operators, and also advanced manufacturing as our key areas that would be large gaps within the county. And so to be able to continue our efforts, now that we've made a plan to go forward, that these are our 3 focus areas, we have to come up with funding to put these into play. And so working with the schools as we're asking them to put these new programs into effect, we have to have some funding that's able to help them get the programs off the ground. And so one of the ways that we're doing that is we are writing a PPL grant that's $100,000. And in talking with PPL, one of the main factors that they look at is to make sure that you have some additional funding coming in from, say, your county. If you don't, they don't even look at it. So it's an important part of obtaining a grant. The other thing is that Cumberland Perryco Tech will be putting in $100,000 to help get the program off the ground. Cumberland Valley School District will also be given $100,000 plus having to hire an additional position to get this off the ground. And then speaking with Volvo, which we took out some educators and our workforce, some of our workforce committee out there to look at their heavy equipment operator simulators, which we would need to put this program in place with all the infrastructure needs that we know are going to come, hopefully, down the pipeline. They are willing to donate a simulator at $85,000, and then we will try to come up with funding to buy 2 more at cost at $65,000 if we go through Pensy Supply. And so really, what we need is, it's one thing for the educators and the employers, they work in silos. Our main job at KDEC is to make sure that we're facilitating those discussions between the educators and the employers, making sure that somebody is leading these discussions, making sure that we're pushing the curriculum forward, making sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure that these programs get put in place. And we've already had our first healthcare meeting with the educators, and that included Pinnacle and Geisinger, our two biggest healthcare providers, working with them on a curriculum, and they have a lot of energy. They are looking at getting this into the school at the Cumberland Valley School District, which has 9,000 students by next year. And so it's very aggressive, and we're hoping to get this stuff pushed forward and keep that momentum moving forward. However, without us saying that we're able, as our, this is part of the county's comprehensive plan, we need some funding to help continue to facilitate, move these discussions, get some equipment, pay for the curriculum, who's gonna write the curriculum to put in place. So we're asking to kind of keep with this momentum going, and we don't, to continue to fund these efforts going forward, because this is gonna be important as workforce initiatives and for our county and our region.
And if I could add to that, I know there was some questions at the last meeting about, why public dollars from the county would need to be put into this, and is this something that the educators and the employers can kind of figure out themselves? And long term, that is the business model that we think will need to happen to get there. As Laura kind of alluded to, first step is really working with the curriculum and making sure that it's implemented and integrated into the school system. So our request here is not to buy any of the equipment that she had referenced. It's really a big piece of allowing us as an organization to really focus over the next couple of years to get this off the ground, to get this to where these curriculums are integrated, not just in CV schools, but hopefully in our other 7 or 8 school districts that we have here in the county in addition to the VOTEC. And so we don't see this as a long-term funding request from the county or the county commissioners. We do see this as a short-term gap, maybe a multi-year, but that will allow us the time to get these curriculums up and going, get these programs up and going, and then be able to recruit additional school districts or postgraduate institutions in addition to more employers at the table, so therefore we have a sustainable program moving forward. And as Laura said, we really wanted to make sure that we also had private sector support as well. So that's why this PP&L grant is going to be extremely important to us, in addition to the in-kinds from Volvo, from Ames Shoe Temper, from Tucky's, and from everyone else who's been at the table, who's not only helping us shape this program, but then also allowing us to borrow their employees to help us get to where we need to get to. So we do see this as a true, public-private partnership, and we're not just coming to you asking you to carry the load. We're actually asking the private sector to carry the load, but we know that there's a smaller public, component piece of this as well.
Questions?
So I think when you were in one of the other times before, you said probably a 3-year project. So we're just looking for a commitment for a single year at this point.
Correct. Yeah, we're not asking for a multi-year commitment here to today, but we wanted to be honest and transparent to say that the way we have this mapped out is really a 3-year program. Year number 1 is really working on the curriculum and bringing all the players together, and then hopefully being able to secure the equipment. So therefore, in year 2, we can start in an implementation phase and get the equipment into the school systems to therefore be able to work from there. And then the other piece of it that Laura didn't really touch on that I think is critical is also the internships and the apprenticeships piece of it as well, and making sure that when kids do graduate, that they do have the option to go right into some of these fields where we know there's high demand through internships and apprenticeships. And some of that work is already starting to happen at CV.
So as we try to build a pipeline up in these areas, and like I did say, there's 3 areas, so we're not gonna be able to put this together as aggressive as we are in 1 year, looking at 3 different programs. But really what they do is these kids go in and they get a broad-based skill set. So even though you may want to go into construction and, you know, you want to be a flagger or whatever it is, instead of, if you decide you don't want to go to school for 4 years at this point in time, and your skill is better off in some of this heavy equipment and the trade skills, what this allows you to do is get this work-ready certificate. So when you graduate, you have that in hand along with your diploma that says, so these are the employers that value this curriculum, and that's why they're the ones putting it together. So when I come to you with a job and have that work-ready certificate, it's something that you already value. And with that is some additional soft skills training that we hear so much in the community about, you know, is there effective communication? Are you able to problem solve? Those things that we want to add in there as well, so the employers can really look at this work-ready certificate, value that as something that's really something good. And at that point in time, you go to work, maybe your employer sends you back to school, and you know, you can go on to training. But this is a way to give kids a leg up that don't want to go into retail, that don't see 4-year college as the way that they want to go, but these are great paying jobs.
You mentioned something to the effect that Cumberland Valley is going to donate or put in $100,000 towards this.
That's in addition to their employee.
Yes.
And in addition to hiring
They have to hire a director position to go in there and oversee all of these changes. In addition to that, once we're able to obtain the simulators, they would be housed at Cumberland Valley School District. And we're hoping to put in a program that Cumberland Perry Road Tech will be able to use the simulators with their students as well. And even Hack can use it, and later down the road, once we think through this, we could actually get underemployed and unemployed people bussed out there to get that heavy equipment operator skills training.
So this is for Lava,
It's from them,
the simulators.
yes.
Because it's for training specifically for Lava.
No,
No.
they make the machinery and the equipment.
Oh, okay.
This is a simulator that shows, it has like 24 different modules of every type of equipment that you could use,
Okay.
that they can sit in there and kind of work it, and it's exactly like you would see if you were in the real equipment. So what happens is, first, there's a lot of training that's involved with that, and there's a lot of safety. So then after that, they go into the simulator and do that for some time, and then they go out to like blind excavating and do the real on-site,
So Bubba's just donating the equipment?
the simulator.
Okay.
I wish Dr. Witham was here. I have a couple specific questions.
You know,
for him.
I could even see if I would thought he was skinning out in the hallway, but.
Jump in. I've had some communication with John, so I'm trying to get me personally, get my arms around something I want to support. But there's just some things here. But the information you provided me last week, Jonathan, helped fill those gaps in my head. But the question I keep asking, what is the return on investment for Cumberland County? You know, you get a curriculum, you get business involved. I see with Kate, it's going to be like almost like the marriage counselor, getting A and B to work together. I get that now, which I think is important. But
These apprenticeships, I think, these internships, these are good paying jobs of people getting into, you know, that contribute to the tax base and back into the county and to the community. You know, I think that's huge for us, and it fits a need that we have in this area. You know, what happens when we can't fill these jobs and employers look elsewhere?
well, I can tell you, and there he is.
Dr. Witham.
We were just talking about
You
you.
just wanted me to do everything.
I was told
No.
I'm sorry.
I was just mentioning to Laura, Dr. Witham, welcome.
Thank you.
Said, I wish Dr. Witham was here. I had a couple of questions. Now, if you're here, if I may. Doctor, the VOTEC right now, what is the enrollment? Is it up, down, about the same, say, for the last 10 years?
The VOTEC is operating somewhere between 80 and 85% of its enrollment capacity. Some of the shop areas are up, some of the shop areas are down. One of the things that I've discussed with the vocational director is to do a strategic plan that's not the superintendent's, that's not the VOTEC board, that's not his administration, to come in and take a look at where we are and what we can do to better align our programs in a way that would attract greater numbers of students into the VOTEC.
Yeah, I was just asking a question. I want to get around this and support it, and some information that Jonathan shared with you last week has helped. But my question is still, what is the return on investment for Cumberland County? We have, this simulator. I know the demand for example, heavy equipment operators. This year, we're going to talk to the folks at Pensy Supply. They can't find them. They can't find qualified.
Right, but I think it also goes beyond that.
I know that.
Yeah.
This is an example. But our unemployment is very low. If we train these people for these jobs, which I have nothing against, where are they going to be working? Let me throw another thing out here, and I may not be comparing apples to oranges, apples to apples. Gary said something you shared with us months ago. I think it was in an article in the Central Business Journal. Lancaster County, bring in one of my favorite topics, farmland preservation. I think they lead the state in preserved acres, but they are also one of the very highest manufacturing jobs. What's the difference between Cumberland and Lancaster? Maybe a very simple answer, but
Okay, so to your point, we have a very low unemployment rate, and we have a lot of manufacturing and distribution centers. And talking with some of them, the Amazons, the Aintree Timbers, the L'Oreal, they are looking at going more automated. E-commerce is so big now, everybody wants packages yesterday. So in looking at automation, we don't have the skilled workforce to fix these, to fix equipment, to work on the automation part of it. The good thing that works for us is if these are less jobs, we can hire paid jobs. So it fits perfectly into everything that we're doing, because now we have a higher paid job and not just paying people and rotating people through these temp agencies, but you're also looking at our low unemployment rate, which means we need less people. So it's absolutely a good fit for this area.
Also to that, I think Laura, really hit it, is that, we're looking to improve the household income, which if you recall is one of the goals within our strategic plan. We focused a lot on was, how do we, continually raise the wage here in Cumberland County. But also I know there's two manufacturers that I've had meetings with, recently, and I'll leave out their names. But one said, we hired 100 people last year in manufacturing jobs, starting with good pay. I would have hired another 100 if I would have had the people who had the basic skill sets to do the job. And so if you ask me what's the ROI is that those kind of companies could have potentially hired another 100 to 200 new employees at a much higher pay scale than what they're probably getting wherever else they may be working. But in addition, just with those two companies alone, we all know that these two companies would love to grow here. And so part of what, why we fast track this is because when they're ready to make that decision, we don't want them to go somewhere out west or somewhere south or north. We want them to come and grow that here. And I think that's the ROI that we also see in the back of our minds is that companies that are here, how do we help them grow and expand? Because the Ames, this is not, they're in 10 or 12 other communities. And so they have a broad spectrum of, where they could go as they look to bring jobs back here to the States. And we're focused on making sure that when companies such as those makes those decisions, that they see and they feel confident that we have a plan in place to be able to help their workforce succeed. Because that's what it comes down to. Everyone's, every time we answer a phone call, it's what's your workforce, what's your skilled labor, let us see the data, and let's compare it. They don't talk about taxes, they're not talking about incentives, they're not even talking about sites, they're talking about, let me see your skilled labor. And I think the sooner we can answer those questions, the more we'll continue to gain from that.
We have I think it's a 3.6% unemployment rate, which I think is about full employment. And when I see the news every morning, job openings here, they're mainly the warehousing jobs that aren't family train those who like to get into this type of work. I get that. When will you see this, say like the first, I'll call it graduates, coming out of this 2-3 years?
Again, I apologize, I thought I was a half an hour early.
I don't know who told you. I didn't really want to know. My trees lost.
No, the whole, I said the schedule
Blame
on. Blame me.
And what I'm going to say is that our return on investment is increasingly, we are seeing students who return home from college, having had a college prep diploma and not a lot of associated job skills. So while they're often not unemployed, they are underemployed. They're living above their parents' house, and they are, above their garage, and they're trying to make ends meet while they're paying off $30, $40, $50, $120,000 worth of debt. I think when you use the word curriculum, then I think part of the responsibility belongs to the school district to reestablish and reprioritize and develop curriculum. And we are very much in the process of doing that. I'll give you a quick example. We had a family and consumer science teacher leave recently, suddenly, and it was just one of those opportunities where, the family and consumer science people will shudder if I use the word stitch and stir, but often that's what their curriculum is associated with. And it was originally associated with that for really very good economic and health reasons. But that was probably, 1930. And it has been very, very slow to respond. Rather than look for a traditional family and consumer science teacher, we went out and looked for someone who was willing to talk about tourism, event planning, and culinary arts, which are the 3 strands of an associate's degree that you can get at Harrisburg Area Community College. So we're looking to revamp programs within our family consumer science department in conjunction with a representative from our business department. So students who are moving through the curriculum, who may want a job in hotel management, event planning, tourism, or culinary arts, can then go to VOTEC, go to HAC, go through our program, and go into either strand. And again, even if they start thinking this would be a great thing and they get into it, they get a certificate that says they're food safety. So they literally can walk into any restaurant, and I'm for the CD kids, I want to put them ahead of the others, but they can walk in and say, I'm food safe. If they find out that, I kind of took some college courses and I did some things early on, this is not for me. They have personal and business experiences related to their program after they met their core requirements for a high school diploma, that they may say, okay, well, I don't want to be in hotel management, but I do want to be in business. Or, I do want to be in business, but a lot of face-to-face stuff, I think I like that, but until I actually did it, it's really not my thing. I'm more like an accountant in a cubicle kind of business versus a person at a front desk. So those are the kinds of ways that we are re-gearing our curriculum. And we're looking at the hospitality, advanced manufacturing, healthcare, and then heavy equipment operating. We're also looking to do it in non-traditional ways. We don't want to get, the VOTEC cannot afford to start buying pieces of equipment and the land to start pushing dirt around. But we believe that if we can get kids into a program where between their junior and senior year, they would come in, they would take American history, 12th grade English, and phys ed, they pretty much clear the decks of what traditionally is required. We will pay for kids at our cost to come in and get those credits during the summer. But if you're here and you're taking those credits, then we want you to get an Ocean 10 certificate, we want you to get a Flagger certificate, and we want you to get a first aid and CPR certificate, and we'll put you on simulators. Now, a Line, a York Excavating, one of the Liberty can begin to pick those kids up and take them from there. And in some cases, again, kids will start to work, and a York Excavating will say, oh my gosh, we need site estimators, we need this, we need that. We'll send you to HAC to take some additional courses. So again, they have a marketable skill, a way up the ladder. Someone saying they want to be a civil engineer, we should be telling them too, you should have OSHA 10, you should have flagger, and you can be doing these things in the summer, as well as have a better understanding of what happens on the ground when you're putting these lines on a map in an office somewhere. So that's what we're striving to do curriculum-wise. Our ask as a district is maybe a little different than their ask, whatever form it takes, whether it's dollars or commitment or whatever. We're really looking to make sure that we get skin in the game from everybody involved, from parents, from government, from school officials, and from business and industry. Because for years, we certainly have been going out as a district and saying, hey, take our kids and do an internship, and hey, take our kids and do this. We know that the traditional model doesn't work. But we think that if we can create an environment, the times are right to do so, that we can get everybody to the table with a level of commitment and backing, regardless of what it is, that we can do a far better job of generating these conversations and then taking these curriculum from the classroom theory out into a reality that will transition these kids out of high school and into the workforce, whether it's directly through continuing education or through further college degree.
I appreciate your comments, and I've said this before, I think you get it. The question I've had for some time is, why is it taking so long for people, superintendents, guidance counselors, what have you, to get it? Because, this has been talked about all the way back to the years of the late Governor Casey. About how sending everybody to a four-year college may not result, in a career once they get out of school, and they're in debt up to their eyeballs, and like you said, living above, in an apartment or whatever, in the basement of their parents' home. And I just want to respond to something Vince said. I mean, I don't know whether this has anything to do with it or not, but I know down in Lancaster, and this is nothing against any of our local institutions of higher education, but they have a gem down in Lancaster called Stevens. Started out as Stevens Trade School, where they've got a placement rate of I think 98% of the kids who come out of there get a quality, high-paying job somewhere. Now, that's a couple years, 2 years, I think, associate degree.
I'm actually a trustee.
Or a board trustee. So in any event, I appreciate the fact, I just learned today that CV, your board has agreed to a $100,000 contribution toward this effort.
Are you talking about the proposal that I put together? It is a combination, that is in-kind spaces and opportunities. We are redirecting administrators. We've taken administrators out of district office, push them down closer to the kids. Is really our goal. This is where they land. Space as well as the summer programming to provide our teachers to be able to do this. Some of that is a redirection in total, some of it's a redirection of existing resources, and some of it's a commitment of new resources. Offering summer programs is a commitment of new resources. Taking an existing administrator, repurposing him, and moving him to the high school is not new, but it's a rededication.
So let me ask you about your colleagues, superintendents of the other school districts here in Cumberland County. Where are they? I know you have your meetings. Where are they on what you're trying to do at Cumberland Valley?
Everybody is, I think, well aware of the situation. If you've been at any of the chamber meetings and you've heard the other superintendents talk, there is an effort to begin to move in this direction. There's also an effort to begin to move collectively. One of the things that we have much better agreement on is a sourcing agreement. We were exchanging kids that wanted to go to Hackney. It has been a long slog. It has been, like you said, absolutely, it's been 20, 30 years that we've been talking about this in education. Unfunded mandates, unions, good economic times, bad economic times, culture. I mean, there is just parents' current belief Their parents, we said to them, no, your child is not best suited to go to college, they would think that was a, you know, we were trading off the American dream, when in reality, that's not the case. Someone asked me recently, you know, my child wants to make a lot of money. They're half kidding. They want to make a lot of money, they want to travel the world, they want to do this, they want to do that. What do they need to get into? I said, welding. I mean, they thought I was going to say heart surgeon, and then they looked at me and I said, and they need a scuba certificate with it so that they can do underwater welding, and they will make more money with less debt than you could ever possibly imagine. Travel the world and run their own business. And that, you know, again, that piece is hard to overcome. CV.
I think every parent of a child in, let's say, before they get to their junior year, should see that YouTube video that you have.
Exactly.
And actually, I think it should be the guidance counselors, you know, they should show that to everybody. They should, you know, especially the students, but also to their parents, because I think this is ingrained that the only way to succeed is you got to go to college. You know?
And for some students, that's the path, but it clearly and increasingly is not the pathway for all students.
I have 3 daughters, all of them, you know, have college degrees, 2 of them have masters, and knock on wood, they're still all gainfully employed and doing pretty well. But it is not necessarily the path that everybody needs to take, and I think that I think that this is part of a, you know, I guess a societal, educational matter that we need to address. So I'm going to say this on this proposal. You know, I supported the $50,000 for the military base preservation effort, and I'm going to support this contribution from the county for this initiative to get it started. But we have some budget issues of our own that we're still not quite sure how it's all going to work out with the state budget situation, where they're, you know, essentially looking in the stuffing in the mattresses and so forth as to where they can, you know, find this money and try to make ends meet with the current state budget. And that could impact the county here. But I did check with our finance folks today before this meeting, and I understand that we do have some funding that has not yet been committed, contingency available in the current year's budget. But I will say this, that whether or not we're going to be in a position to fund this next year or the following year, I don't know yet. Because we have to deal with the courts. We got, you know, this whole issue of the potential creation of a 7th judge, which is going to have an impact on the county's finances. But I'd like to, it's in order to make a motion to approve the $50,000 request for Katie for the workforce development program.
Do we have a motion? Is there a second? I'll second. Is there any questions or comments? I do have a couple. If all goes well here, what will you be telling us a year from now?
I would like to have a pre-heavy equipment program in operation, preferably this summer. We'd like to have an articulated series of pathways for the healthcare industry, which is just going to boom in the Harrisburg, Carlisle metro area. We've got Pinnacle and Geisinger at the table right now with a full-day meeting with VOTAC to talk about how do we align our curriculum. And I really would like to take our pre-engineering programs, meld them with VOTAC, and really then again create a continuum of opportunities that kids can begin to follow in advanced manufacturing. And the tourism thing was really not part of this conversation, but you know, we know that it's actually surprisingly a growing area for us, and as an initiative that, you know, as a district, in line with this, we would really want to undertake and make sure that that's in place as well.
One of my reasons for, you know, supporting this also, and I appreciate the leadership in Cumberland Valley, but I'm hoping that through our involvement, through Katie, that this can become a school districts as well.
Has to.
Yeah.
So, and we're gonna be looking for results. How does it work? Because, and again, I mean, you know, hopefully it's just to light the fire, get this thing going, and finally, after many years of talk, but you know, I think it's positive, you know, for our young people. I think it's positive for our county as a whole. You know, make this, I'll call it partnership investment. You know, describe it.
Yeah, the philosophy has to change because the unemployment rate we're at, we can't get, you know, minds to think a different way. And again, that YouTube video just, I don't know how many people have shown it. They just go, you know what I mean? So this is something we need to do for not just the present, but for the future. Our future may not look so bright here. I mean, we're glad things are going well here in Cumberland County. They are. But we have to look out and look down the road here. And good opportunity here, so you have my support. Anyway, we have a motion. We have a second. Are there any comments, additional comments? Anybody?
I'll just throw in one real quick thing. I mean, the workforce gap has not been a secret. I think it's been the number one issue listed by our business community for at least as long as I've been here. And that's a long time for action to be pending. But now you've got, as you outlined for us, Tech, the school district, Volvo, Tucky's, Ames, PP&L. So you've got a broad participation here. The WIB is now more active to undertaking energetic actions, working closer with the EDCs and other economic partners. So we've got a critical mass forming here, and it's a great opportunity that hasn't existed before. So, and that's what it will take for this to succeed. So I'm glad you raised the question about what are we looking at next year, because John, I think when you originally presented to us the 3-year, there were some things in there, and what Dr. Whitman just gave us as well is valuable for us to track the progress. So I think everybody's grasping that this is not a quick fix, and it does nobody any good if we are back here a year from now and the commissioners say, well, what happened? You didn't fix workforce development. This is a process, so we're going to need to make sure that we're making those measured gains and that they're evident for us to see if we're going to continue participating. But the economy's changing, and that requires new action. Stuff with a mention about if you just use the conventional mode, we're not going to succeed. We're not going to continue to be successful. So I think what we've heard here is well thought out. It's a broad partnership. It has the best opportunity for success that I've seen so far. So happy to wish you well.
It's really these two folks. I mean, they've done a phenomenal job with pulling all this together. So.
Yeah. No, I just want to follow up on something Gary said there. I mean, I understand that success and results doesn't happen overnight. Okay. All I'm saying in terms of the priority functions of county government, all right, we're going to have to see where we are. We got a couple of murder trials, I understand, coming up here. There's going to be a huge expense to the county. So all I'm saying is I'm willing to give this a kickstart, support it now. Hopefully we'll be in a position to be able to support it for the next year, the following year. And I understand exactly what Gary's saying, because you know, you start something, you don't see, stop in the middle. But you know, we do need to take a look at these. This is our job. I mean, and hopefully the legislature will figure out a way to fund education. That would be nice, so that it doesn't come out of our, it doesn't rely so much on property taxes. But this is an area where, I mean, it really is the responsibility of the State General Assembly to provide for a thorough and efficient system of public education, and this should be part of that thorough and efficient system of public education, preparing young people for good careers should be like that. Number one thing. So, anyway,
I guess we have to vote.
I apologize. I appreciate you giving me a second to regroup after the blood rushed out of my, down to my neck. I realized I was walking in on a meeting in progress instead of one that was soon to start.
You covered very well, I mean.
Thanks for
Thanks for
helping out, too. All in favor? Yeah. Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you, guys.
You had anything?
We're going to talk about the state budget here at the end, at the end of the meeting. You're welcome to stay or leave.
Yeah.
Okay, have a good one.
Go on, sure. Next we have, excuse me, approval of minutes of August 24th and 28th. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval. Second.
Any questions or comments on the minutes? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next we have approval of personnel transactions. For motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have the approval of letter of support for the IAC Brownfield redevelopment project, Keystone Communities Program Grant request. Is there a motion?
For approval.
Second.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have item 9, approval of contracts and grants. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have approval of the in-partnership grant recommendations. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have approval of agreement for the Bishop Bridge Emergency Access Road in Psychology County and Cumberland County. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have approval of request to advertise for bid proposals for communication freelancers. Excuse me, Keith, can we do all 4 of these at once, or should they be done individually?
I'm doing them all at once.
Okay, that would include freelance writer, freelance social media specialist, freelance website editor, and freelance photographer, video producer. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second, I just have a question.
Yeah.
This doesn't limit somebody from applying for more than one of these positions, right?
It does not.
So in other words, if you have somebody who's good at social media and is a good writer, or good at websites and is a, social or photographer, I mean, they could,
They can apply for multiple, yes.
for all of them.
Mhm.
Okay, all right.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have approval of capital request, Sheriff's Department, 2 vehicles, replace and total project cost $95,140.50. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is approval of general disbursements, transfer authorizations, item 14A through E. Is there a motion for approval? For approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We'd like to report executive sessions were held September 6th at 11 a.m. and September 7th at 9:50 a.m. regarding personnel issues. Also like to announce acceptance of monthly report for registered wills for the Board Conservation District with monetary report of deeds, Veterans Affairs, and change of assessments for the month of August. Is there any other business to be brought in front of the board?
On the letter that we issued Friday, are we putting that, putting the press release out relative to the state budget? Okay. I just want to, I don't see any media here, but I just want to spread some comments on the record. I know that some of our state representatives think that they found gold at the end of the rainbow, but this alternative revenue plan that's been proposed really, once again kicks the can down the road in dealing with the state budget shortfall responsibly. It essentially is a rob, not borrow, rob from Peter to pay Paul. These are dedicated funds for specific priorities that they want to raid. Our 911 fund for our 911 emergency call answering system, the agricultural conservation fund for farmland preservation, growing greener and environmental stewardship fund to preserve and protect our environment, and maintain and improve our various parks. And then the public transportation trust fund, which provides major support for our fixed route and shared ride services for our seniors and the disabled. None of us want to see, nobody ever wants to see a tax increase, but there's no doubt in my mind that some of these proposed transfers for general government operations could very well, lead to a property tax increase for our county's taxpayers. The whole purpose of the $1.65 monthly fee for 911 instituted on all communication devices in which consumers pay on a monthly basis. The whole intent of that was to help defray the increased burden on our county property taxpayers for the costs of what is this a critical public service. Pulling $40 million out of the 911 fund will not only potentially increase costs for our county property taxpayers, but is in direct contradiction and circumvents the very law that the legislature enacted on the 911 funding, which says that none of the money can be used to fund general government operations at either the state or the county level. And we don't know at this point precisely how the $357 million that they want to take from the public transportation trust fund will affect capital area transit. We've received no report from CAT on the potential impact, and yet we do know from Rapid Transit, who we contract with for shared ride service, that this raid will increase shared ride fees by at least $10 round trip and result in the loss of trips to work, trips for senior citizens to get to senior centers, trips for nursing home visits, while reducing Rapid Transit's fixed route service by 30%. And we haven't heard anything from Capital Area Transit. So what I would like to know is, where is the chairman of the board of Capital Area Transit with respect to his critique, or at least analysis, of the impact of this $357 million raid on the Public Transportation Trust Fund. And I would like to ask my colleagues to support a letter to Chairman Ugal to ask him to come to either as soon as possible to one of our either workshop sessions or finance committee meetings, probably more appropriate one of our finance committee meetings, so that we can find out from him as to what this means as far as transportation services through Capital Area Transit. And then finally, I just wanted to make this point. While they're looking for cash, under the bed, or our legislators, they might want to take a look a little bit harder in the stuffing of the mattress of their own bed. Because, well, I noticed that they're talking about transferring $20 million out of legislative reserves. The latest audit report shows that they have over $100 million in reserves, in the General Assembly, the State Senate, and the State House. And while I know that they used the argument in the past that they want to be able to maintain their independence during showdown with the government, the recent court ruling that occurred, I think, back in 2009, said that legislators, all employees of state government, will still be paid, regardless of the failure to achieve the enactment of a budget. So there's no reason for the legislature to be sitting on over $100 million. So, and I know our legislators, at least those who have proposed these various transfers, they did include $5 million from each caucus, out of the legislative reserve. But I think there's a little bit more there. And in addition to that, these legislators who are saying that we should take $40 million out of the 911 emergency fund for a purpose that was never intended for, they also managed to vote for a $32 billion budget, except for one of our state representatives. All of them voted for a $32 billion budget. That, by the way, includes an increase in funds for the operations of the General Assembly. So while they're talking about taking $20 million out of reserves, they increased funds for the operations of the General Assembly by $14 million. So it's about, I think, total operation of the General Assembly is like $311 million on an annual basis. So really, they're only taking $5 million, out of their $100 million reserve. So if they really want to take money that's sitting around, right, and not serving any purpose, I think they can take a look a little bit closer at their own operations. But in any event, I think the proposal by some of the members of our General Assembly, some of them who represent us here in Cumberland County, is a bunch of poppycock. And they need to get down to the real business of doing what's right in terms of coming up with a responsible way to balance this state budget. So that's all I'm going to say. I had to get that off my chest.
Rachel, we have a press release that you can release along with our letter.
Yes.
Yeah, just real quick, you mentioned about the request for information from CAT regarding the potential impacts. I'm not sure if you got to see this, but in response to a request from our CAT board when we collapsed saddle, Mr. Miguel apparently did send us a response. I'm not sure if you saw that or not. And then I'll read it directly to you. It says, respectfully, that really is not a worthwhile use of staff time, the analysis of impact, that is. There doesn't appear to be much chance for the proposal yet. It has plenty of legislative hurdles to have any real legs. I think we need to keep staff focused on more immediate matters. I think that really is in glaring contrast to the fact that we already have a detailed analysis for rapid transit, which is the shared ride provider, and provides fixed route access in counties around us. So we've had that analysis at hand for days. CAT's made it clear, at least to me, that they have no intention of even performing an analysis, which raises a lot of questions, So I just thought I'd put that on the table, and I would echo that most of the comments were made already. The entire purpose of having dedicated funds is so that the funding for essential matters such as 911 don't get caught up in budgetary politics, and to keep the use of those funds away from political machinations and priorities. So the idea was that those dollars are collected from related sources to be used for those related and dedicated purposes. And what they're proposing flies in the face of that very directly. And that represents a long-term threat exactly to the entire purpose of dedicated funds. That's all I have.
Yeah, I think we've hit it pretty hard here. Legislators are trying to balance the state budget. We get that. And it's not an easy thing. But this financial problem has existed for many years over there in Harrisburg. And it's not going to be cured by a proposal that is somewhat short-sighted, because much of this so-called surplus, in my opinion, in many people's opinion, is really not a surplus at all. It's funds that have been allocated for a specific purpose. Just a quick example, the farmland preservation program, Jim, I think you had cited, we have 10 farms that have agreed to settlement. And these are funds that are allocated to these property owners, not just in Cumberland County, but all participants throughout the state. These transactions can sometimes take up to 3 years, and the legislature knows that. So it's not a true surplus, it's money that's, just hasn't been written out yet. I agree.
Yeah, could we, could we see whether see if we can get a letter together to request Chairman Bugals, Chairman Bugals, and also I would invite their acting general manager, Tom Reynolds, and perhaps we could also make sure our two CAT board representatives are aware of it. But I think that we've got a lot of questions with respect to CAT. The fact that, we got such a quick response or quick notification from Rapid Transit with respect to the impact of this, and then we've had nothing but deafening silence from CAT Board of Transit. I mean, they either are not aware of what's going on, or for some reason they're hiding what's going on. So I just think it's important that we make the request for Mr. Bugals and Mr. Reynolds to come to a meeting here at the county as soon as possible. We don't know how long the legislature is going to be chewing over this proposal, but I think it raises, as Gary mentioned, serious questions as to what's going on. I mean, first of all, if you look at it, it's state and federal funding that provides the lion's share of support for transit service. And if they don't have a handle on how taking $357 million away from the Public Transportation Trust Fund, Public Transit Trust Fund, what that means to CAT. I mean, I'm wondering who's running the show over there, whether there's anybody at the steering wheel. And I think we need to get some answers to a number of questions.
I have no problem submitting a letter requesting his presence here.
Very good. We will do that. Any other business? Okay, is there a motion for adjournment? For adjournment, thank you.